What's good, y'all? What's good? What's good? I'm outside, a little different scenery today, but I didn't get a chance to talk about that Conor Benn and Eubank Jr. fight, man. I looked at it, saw some highlights. I saw the 3-minute highlight. I saw the 12th round, and then I saw bits and pieces of the fight, the long version. And man, look, this fight wasn't really on my radar. I'm going to be honest. Conor Benn, he had all the stuff going on with the PEDs and getting past all that and getting back on track. But he hasn't really fought anybody, so he wasn't really on my radar, even though I think that he's a skilled fighter. He has his flaws, and I'll get into those, but, he just hadn't been active against anybody of high quality. And then you toss Eubank Jr.'s name in there, even though he's 35 now and he might be past his prime, but still a very, very athletic fighter. So you look at the what these fighters are at this point in their career, and then you look at the history between the families, Nigel Benn, and then you look at Eubank Sr. And you see the rivalry between the parents transferred down to the children, and if anything, it might be even more intense than the rivalry that we saw between the fathers, man, because they were talking a lot of stuff going into this fight. Eubank Jr. had the egg that he brought to the press conference and hit Conor Benn in the face with it, and that was a whole big thing. And then you go into this fight, and if you really break this fight down, and I'll tell you who I thought won after I go through my breakdown, but this was patience versus ultra aggression. And for the first time in a long time, if ever, I saw Eubank Jr. be a very defensively responsible fighter. He looked like he was thinking, playing chess, like he was a couple steps ahead of Conor Benn as you got deeper into the fight. Early on, Conor Benn came out like gangbusters, and he was really trying to bring that same type of energy the whole fight. But once you got to round, I say 6 or 7 or so, Eubank Jr., he just took over, in my opinion. And I thought that he was landing the cleaner shots. That uppercut was there all night. Conor Benn would close distance kind of recklessly at times, and that check uppercut caught him flush multiple times in that fight. And he was catching him with counter shots multiple times in that fight. Don't get it twisted. Conor Benn did have his moments. He was landing some good punches, but Eubank Jr., he threw about 900 and some change in terms of punches, and he landed like, 400 or 500 punches, whereas Conor Benn landed 200 to 300 punches and only threw about 500 to 600. I'm just saying these numbers off the top of my head from what I saw on CompuBox. But he threw way more, and he still landed more, and he looked like the more active fighter. And you could really see the stamina start to show up later in the fight, and the size advantage that Eubank Jr. still has, it started to show up later in the fight. Even though Conor Benn is a little pit bull, man. You can't take nothing away from him, but you got to start and end with the jab. And I didn't see that from Conor Benn. Really didn't throw the jab a lot. And if you look at the CompuBox stats, he didn't land many jabs at all. He might have landed less than 20 or 30 jabs in the whole fight. And he didn't throw any more than 60 or 70, I don't think. The point being that if you saw a jab in that fight, it was coming from Eubank Jr., and he was using his jab all night long. And he was able to set up his shots off of that. And I think that we learned a few things about Conor Benn, who's a young fighter going into his prime. What is he, like 26, 27, 28, something like that? He's right there, ready and primed, ready to go. But one of the major flaws is a lack of a consistent and effective jab, and that showed up in this fight against Eubank Jr., who used his jab and just was able to take over the fight later on. And even though I didn't see the whole fight, the gist of what I got is that I think he edged the fight because he did the little things right, especially when they were both gassed out and fatigued in those last 3 to 4 rounds. So the lack of a jab, and then 2, doesn't really have a lot of, the IQ needs to get sharper, because as you got deeper into that fight, it looked like Eubank Jr. figured some things out, and Conor Benn just did not have an answer for him. He was sitting there trying to rush in without a jab, and he got caught a lot. He got stopped in his tracks. And the first time I really saw Conor Benn almost get stopped was in that 11th or definitely the 12th round, where he tried to rush in and ran into some shots, especially when he was tired, and he got rocked a few times. Now, like I said, he's a pit bull, but those are not the punches you want to be taking. And if you take those type of punches from another opponent who's younger or more skilled or a younger version of Chris Eubank Jr., you might not finish that fight. So it was a good fight by both fighters. I mean, it was a classic. You know, I'm looking back at just the 12th round. If you just go and look at the 12th round, one of the best rounds I've seen in a very long time, and you would have to consider it being up there with at least the top 20 or 30 best rounds of all time, because it was reminiscent at points of Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward. That's what the 12th round of that fight was like. And the way both of them were selling out and just putting everything on the line, you look at Chris Eubank Jr., how exhausted that dude was. He's throwing punches and winging them and missing a few, and he's right there to get caught and knocked the F out by Conor Benn, who, you know, wasn't able to do it, thankfully for Chris Eubank Jr., but just what it meant for them legacy-wise. The fact that you don't see fights like that often. And it's fights like that that will draw people back to the sport. You know, and hopefully this is not the last fight that we see like that this year, but it is certainly a contender for Fight of the Year already in April. And then, you know, we'll see what comes after that. But I thought that Chris Eubank Jr. edged this fight. I thought that he had a better jab. He had the better game plan as you got later into the rounds, after round 6. And then just he's playing chess like 2 or 3 moves beyond Conor Benn, even though Conor Benn was the more athletic fighter at this point in their career. But he was just thinking ahead of him. So, but even so, kudos to both guys. Let me know who you guys thought won in the comments below. I will be posting this up on YouTube. And before I sign off, let's talk about 2 more fights coming up. Rolly Romero and Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia back in the ring after the whole PED thing that happened last year with Devin Haney. You know, Devin Haney getting back into the ring and trying to get his get back eventually at Ryan Garcia. So I will be making a video about that. I'm actually looking at one of the sit-down combos between him and Rolly, and I'm like, dude, I'm like 4 minutes in and it's already hilarious. I already know this is going to be, it's going to be a roller coaster ride, because Rolly Romero is hilarious, man. I don't see how you could not like that guy, even if you don't think he's the most capable boxer. To not like his personality and how genuine he is and humble. Look, man, I'm looking forward to that. And then the next fight coming up, Alexander Usyk running it back with Daniel Dubois. So in the first fight, for those who didn't see, Daniel Dubois lost the fight. He got stopped by Usyk, but he dropped Usyk with what would seem to be a body shot, and they didn't call it a knockdown. You know, some people think that it was a knockdown, some don't. I'll let you be I'll let you decide that one, but they're running that back, and I think that is a much better matchup than Usyk and Fury, because I think that Daniel Dubois is that dude, and he's one of the best heavyweights right now. And when he comes back healthy, because he had the illness he had to pull out of the fight, the last fight on the Bivol and Better Biev undercard, I'm looking forward to seeing him back and seeing what he's going to do, because he has the potential to win, man. He does. He does. And now he saw Usyk for 12 rounds, or 9 rounds, I think. 7 or 9 rounds, something like that. So now he can make the adjustments and come back and see if he can win, because he's coming off of that win over Anthony Joshua, riding high. So let's see if he's able to continue that and knock the champ off. Let me know what you guys think of those 2 fights, Rolly Romero and Ryan Garcia, and then the rematch between Daniel Dubois and Alexander Usyk, and who you think will win each matchup. And we'll talk about those sooner rather than later. Hope you guys are enjoying your night, and I'll catch you on the next one, man. Deuces.